We're continuing our look at some amazing model railroads out west, coming up right now on the main track. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the main track. Today we're playing catch up with some of the highlights from our trip to Colorado a few months ago to check out some great train attractions out there. In one of our previous episodes, we visited the Colorado Model Railroad Museum in Greeley, which is one of the biggest layouts in the country, and something you really have to see for yourself to believe. Well, if you haven't seen our tour of that just yet, I'll post a link right above and in this video's description. In this episode, we're visiting the Colorado Railroad Museum, which is in Golden, just outside of Denver. But despite a similar sounding name, it is a separate entity from the organization in Greeley and located several miles away. Well, this is a sprawling 19-acre complex with all kinds of full-size train equipment that we'll check out in just a bit. But inside the Visitor Center Depot and down below, you'll find this model railroading masterpiece. Well, this here is the Denver and Western layout of the Denver HO Model Railroad Club. It features HO and HON3 scale trains traversing a miniature mountainous Colorado landscape.
My name is George Steinke. I'm the official treasurer as well as an active member. 55-plus-year-old layout. Most of it's hand-laid track and switches, which is a skill beyond my capabilities right now. And era-appropriate 58s. We try to keep things operating as far as 58s. 1958, 60. So.
The layout features several facets of railroading that you would have seen back in the 1950s, from steam and diesel standard gauge to narrow gauge to electric interurbans. But you're likely to see equipment from all eras depending upon the operating session.
Time frames, the F7s and 8s are the 60s and late and early 70s. We have several Challengers, Northerns, so the steam era can be from the 40s. Clear up to whenever the railroad started with dieselization. And some of our members have the modern SD70s and 45s.
Well, active since 1947, the Denver HO Model Railroad Club is one of the oldest and largest model railroad clubs in the Rocky Mountain region.
Thank you, George.
You'll see trains from all of Colorado's famous railroads, from the Rio Grande to the Union Pacific, Santa Fe, and Burlington. High up in the mountain passes, you'll see the narrow gauge lines. There's plenty of cool stuff to see down here in the basement, but upstairs and outside, the Colorado Railroad Museum operates its own real narrow gauge railroad around the property. Well, since we didn't get a chance on this trip to visit the narrow gauge railroads up in the mountains, this was a great way to experience that part of Colorado's rail history. Well, steam trips are offered, but today we're riding behind this little center cab switcher. Well, the train takes you around the outer edge of the complex where you can see a variety of narrow and standard gauge trains, and you can also walk around the premises to get an even closer look at these relics of Rocky Mountain railroading. things were a little slow on this day at the Roundhouse, but it was still neat to peek inside to get a look at a working steam locomotive shop. Well, after our time in Golden was up, I got to do some other rail fanning. So for a minute, we're going to return to our roots here on the channel and do some prototype train watching. A few miles to the north in Fort Collins, we caught this empty BNSF coal train blasting through downtown, clattering across the diamonds of a Union Pacific branch line. The Front Range subdivision, which runs from Denver to Cheyenne, Wyoming, is unique because it runs right down the middle of Mason Street. I personally wouldn't mind living in one of those lofts above with a nice balcony view of the BNSF. Another spot on my lifelong bucket list out here in Colorado was the Moffat Tunnel in Winter Park along Union Pacific's old Denver and Rio Grande Western. I've been told trains can be hit or miss on this aptly named Moffat Tunnel subdivision, so I was pretty lucky that a UP coal train came by after just a few minutes of standing trackside in a snowdrift near the Amtrak platform and braving the freezing mountain temperatures. Denver-bound train charges into the darkness deep beneath the Continental Divide, and it won't exit the tunnel until it reaches the east portal more than 6 miles away. Even at that length, this is not the longest railroad tunnel in the U.S., but ranks number 3. But it is the highest railroad tunnel elevation-wise. Back home in Missouri, usually by late March, the snow and bitter cold have started to give way to springtime temperatures. But I quickly learned, after standing out here for this long coal train, that winter sticks around a little later here in Colorado. Well, as you can imagine, by the time the end finally rolled by, my ears and nose were starting to feel a little numb. But at least now I can say I got to see the famous Moffat Tunnel, and I'll be sure to dress for the occasion a little better on my next visit to Colorado. From all of us here at the main track, until next time, all aboard and all the best.